Commander Thelvar watched another star die on his screen. The light just went out, like someone blowing out a candle. 47 star systems in 3 months. Each one had millions of people living there just days ago. "Sir, we're getting reports from the outer colonies," his communication officer said, her voice shaking. "The Vortex swarm hit the Meridian system. They consumed everything. Even the asteroids are gone." Thelvar closed his eyes. The Meridian system had been home to 2 billion Zolani. Now it was just empty space and floating debris. The swarm didn't just kill people or destroy planets. They ate everything. Metal, rock, gas. Even the light from the stars seemed dimmer after they passed through. "How long do we have?" he asked, though he already knew the answer would be terrible. His tactical advisor pulled up a holographic map of their territory. Red markers showed where the swarm had struck. The pattern was clear and horrifying. At their current speed, they'll reach our core worlds in 6 months. Maybe less if they split their forces. 6 months. Thelvar had lived for 200 years, seen the rise of the Great Confederation that brought peace to dozens of worlds. Now, he was watching it all crumble in real time. The worst part wasn't even the dying. It was the helplessness. The Confederation had the best scientists in the galaxy. They created technology that seemed like magic to most species. Energy shields that could stop plasma cannons. Weapons that could crack moons. Ships that traveled faster than light itself. None of it worked against the swarm. What about the quantum disruptors? Thelvar asked desperately. The ones from the research station on Kepler 7? Deployed 3 days ago against a small swarm scout group, came the reply, the creatures adapted within hours. Their next attack wave was completely immune. That was how it always went. The swarm would take losses in the first attack, then come back stronger. Their biology changed faster than the Confederation could develop new weapons. It was like fighting an enemy that learned from every punch you threw. Thelvar walked to the observation deck and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, entire civilizations were being digested by living ships. The swarm didn't even hate their victims. They just consumed everything in their path like a cosmic plague. "Sir," his aide approached carefully. "The High Council has reached a decision about the emergency broadcast." And Thelvar didn't turn around. He could guess what the politicians had decided. They've approved it. Full spectrum, maximum power. We're authorized to offer everything. Our star charts, hyperspace navigation data, even our most classified technology. Thelvar laughed bitterly. A few months ago, that information would have been worth entire star systems in trade negotiations. Now they were giving away for free, begging anyone in the galaxy to help them. "Most species won't even respond," he said. "The smart ones will pretend they never got the message. Fighting the swarm is suicide. Maybe someone will surprise us," his aide said hopefully. "Who? The Krex Empire? They're too busy fighting their own wars. The Vorthan hegemony? They'd probably try to make a deal with the swarm instead of fighting them. Face it, we're alone in this." But they had to try. Pride meant nothing to dead people. An hour later, the message went out across the galaxy. It was simple and desperate. "This is the Zolani Confederation. We are under attack by the Vortex swarm. Our defenses have failed. We will share all our knowledge and technology with any species willing to help us. Please, we are running out of time." Most civilizations deleted the message without reading it. A few forwarded it as a curiosity. Look what's happening to those peaceful plant eaters in the outer rim. The smart ones started reinforcing their own borders and hoped the swarm would be satisfied with Confederation territory. But on a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star, Admiral Jack Parker read the message 3 times. His aide, Lieutenant Bill Hayes, looked over his shoulder at the tactical data attached to the plea. Crystalline bioships, adaptive armor, hive mind coordination. Hayes read out loud, "Sir, this looks like a nightmare. No wonder nobody wants to help them." Parker smiled grimly and reached for his communication device. "Get me fleet command. Tell them the Navy's got a new mission." "Sir, are you sure about this? Every military analysis says fighting the swarm is impossible. That's what makes it interesting, Parker replied. Besides, somebody's got to help those plant people. And it's been too quiet around here lately. The boys are getting restless. Somewhere in the dark between stars, humanity's war machine began to wake up. The Zilani had begged for help, and help was coming. They just had no idea what kind of help they'd ask for. 3 weeks after sending their desperate message across the galaxy, Commander Thelvar stood in the docking bay watching something that shouldn't exist. The human transport ship looked like it had been built in a scrapyard by someone who thought armor plating was a fashion statement. Thick metal plates covered every surface, and what looked like weapon ports dotted the hull like angry eyes. "Are you sure these are diplomats?" his security chief whispered, watching the airlock cycle open. The first human to step out was a woman in a dark blue uniform, but she moved like every predator Thelvar had ever seen in nature documentaries. Behind her came more humans, some in military gear, others in strange white coats, all of them scanning the docking bay like they expected an attack at any moment. "Welcome to Confederation Station," Thelvar said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I am Commander Thelvar. We are grateful for your response to our call for aid." The woman stepped forward and extended her hand, a human greeting he'd read about but never experienced. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "Ambassador Linda Peterson, this is Colonel Tom Martinez and Dr. Rebecca Collins. We're here to discuss your bug problem." Bug problem? Thelvar's translator struggled with the casual tone. These humans were talking about the greatest threat in galactic history, like it was a minor pest issue. "Perhaps we should move to secure briefing room," Thelvar suggested, noting how his guards were nervously eyeing the human weapons. "We can show you tactical data about the swarm's capabilities." "Already seen it," Colonel Martinez said, hefting a case that looked heavy enough to contain a small vehicle. "Your message had good intel. These Vorthack things adapt fast, hit hard, reproduce quickly. Standard hive mind weaknesses, though." "Weaknesses." Thelvar's aide stepped forward. "Commander, with respect, we've been fighting them for months. They have no weaknesses." Dr. Collins opened her tablet and showed footage that made every Zilani in the room step back. It was clearly from the human homeworld, a place their computers classified as uninhabitable. Massive storms that would shred starships, creatures that could bite through metal, plants that could kill you just by touching them. "This is where we come from," she explained matter-of-factly. "Everything on Earth tries to kill us daily. The weather, the animals, the plants, even the bacteria. We've been dealing with things that adapt and evolve to hunt us for millions of years." Thelvar stared at the footage of humans casually living alongside creatures that would terrorize entire Confederation armies. "How do you survive on such a hostile world?" "Practice." Colonel Martinez grinned, and there was something unsettling about that smile. "Lots and lots of practice. See, when everything around you is trying to kill you, you get really good at killing back." Admiral Jack Parker's hologram flickered to life in the center of the room. Even as a projection, he radiated in confidence that made Thelvar uncomfortable. "Sorry I couldn't make it in person, but I'm busy repositioning the fleet. Tell me about your defensive strategies so far." "We've tried energy shields, quantum weapons, even singularity bombs," Thelvar explained. "The swarm adapts to everything within hours." "That's your problem right there," Parker said. "You're fighting them like civilized people. These things are basically space locusts with attitude. You don't negotiate with locusts. You don't try to outsmart them. You just kill them until they stop moving." Lieutenant Amy Chun, who had been quietly observing from near the door, spoke up. "Sir, our initial scan shows swarm bioships have some interesting vulnerabilities. Their adaptive armor is impressive, but still organic. And organic things burn." "Burn?" Thelvar's scales paled. "You mean to use fire weapons? In space?" Among other things, Colonel Martinez opened his case, revealing weapons that looked like they belonged in a museum of ancient warfare. Sometimes the old ways work best. Bullets, explosives, good old-fashioned kinetic force. Hard to adapt to a chunk of metal moving at 3,000 meters per second. Dr. Collins was already studying biological samples the Zilani had collected from swarm attacks. Fascinating cellular structure, rapid mutation capability, But there's a weakness here. Their adaptation cycle has a delay period. Hit them with multiple different attack types simultaneously, and their biology gets confused trying to adapt to everything at once. You're talking about engaging them in close combat. Thelvar said in horror, "That's suicide. No species has ever survived direct contact with swarm forces. No species has ever been us." Lieutenant Chin replied simply, "We've been fighting wars since we learned to make tools. Our ancestors hunted animals 10 times their size with pointed sticks. These bugs might be tough, but they've never faced humans before." Parker's hologram leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen. We're bringing in the Third Fleet, 12 dreadnoughts, 40 destroyers, and enough Marines to take a small planet. We're going to show these swarm creatures what happens when they mess with our new neighbors." Thelvar felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's climate control. The humans weren't just confident about fighting the swarm. They were excited about it. Looking at their weapons, their casual discussion of tactics that seemed insane, he began to wonder if Confederation had just traded one nightmare for another. But as another report came in about 3 more systems going dark, he realized they were out of options. They had asked for help from anyone willing to fight, and the universe had sent them warriors from a world where everything was a weapon. Now, they would see if human monsters were better than alien ones. Captain Robert Hayes stood on the bridge of his destroyer, watching the swarm scout fleet through his tactical display. 12 bioships, each one the size of a city block, their crystalline hulls pulsing with that sickly green light that meant they were feeding on stellar radiation. "Human vessels, you're approaching too fast." Commander Thelvar's voice crackled to the comm from his observation ship. "Swarm bioweapons have a range of 50,000 kilometers. At your current speed, they'll tear you apart." Hayes glanced at his navigation officer, Lieutenant Danny Walsh, who just shrugged. "Copy that, Alien Command. Tell my wife I said the kitchen sink needs fixing if this goes sideways." The Zilani probably thought he was saying goodbye. They didn't understand that humans always joke before a fight. It kept the fear manageable. "All ships. This is Hammer Lead." Hayes announced to his squadron, "Remember, these things adapt fast. So we're going with the Murphy Doctrine. Hit them with everything different all at once." "Sir," Walsh said, checking his readings, "the Zilani ships are falling back to minimum safe distance." "Smart of them. Weapons. Arm everything. Kinetic rounds, plasma charges, nuclear warheads, and those new acid shells the engineers cooked up. If it explodes, burns, or goes boom, I want it ready." The swarm ships detected the approaching human fleet and began forming their standard defensive pattern. Through the comm, Hayes could hear Thelvar giving tactical advice that probably worked great against civilized opponents. "The swarm will attempt to envelope your formation with superior numbers. Recommend defensive positioning and coordinated withdrawal to—" "Thanks, but we got this," Hayes interrupted, then switched to his squadron frequency. "All ships, remember what we practiced. Ramming speed on my mark." The Zilani tactical officer's voice rose in panic. Did he just say ramming speed? That's impossible. No civilized species engages in direct collision attacks. "Good thing we're not civilized," muttered Sergeant Tony Mitchell from his Marine transport, checking his assault rifle for the 3rd time. The human destroyers didn't slow down as they approached the swarm formation. Instead, they accelerated. Hayes watched the distance counter tick down. 50,000 kilometers. 40,000. The swarm bioships opened fire with streams of acidic plasma that could melt through most shields in seconds. "Evasive maneuvers," Hayes called out, feeling his ship shake as plasma bolts seared past them. "Remember, these things aim where you're going to be, not where you are. Be somewhere else." His pilot, Commander Lisa Park, laughed as she threw their destroyer into a spiral that would kill most aliens from the G-forces alone. "This is better than the roller coaster at Disney World." 30,000 kilometers. The human fleet split into 3 groups, each one attacking from a different angle. The swarm ships tried to adapt their formation, but they were used to enemies who fought from a distance. "Impact in 10 seconds, Walsh called out. "All hands, brace for collision." "Wait." Thelvar's voice cut through the comm. "They're actually going to—" Hayes' destroyer slammed into the side of a swarm bioship at 20% of light speed. The impact tore through both vessels like tissue paper, but the human ship was built for this kind of abuse. Emergency bulkheads sealed the breach sections while damage control teams rushed to repair critical systems. Hull breach on decks 4 through 7, reported as damage control officer. We're venting atmosphere, but the main systems are intact. Outstanding, Hayes grinned, watching as the ship's momentum carried them through the swarm vessel's interior. Marines, you're up. Time to go bug hunting. Sergeant Mitchell led his squad through the breach in the swarm ship's hull, wearing armor that could survive in vacuum and carrying weapons that most species couldn't even lift. The inside of the bio ship was a nightmare of organic corridors and pulsing walls, but Mitchell had seen worse things in basic training. Contact front, called Private Jake Thompson as a group of swarm warriors rounded a corner. The creatures were 8 feet tall with crystalline carapaces and claws that could cut through steel. Mitchell opened fire with his assault rifle, sending explosive rounds down the corridor. That's for eating our new plant buddies, you ugly bugs. The space battle had turned into something no civilized species had ever seen. Human Marines were fighting hand-to-hand with swarm creatures inside bioships while their vessels rammed through enemy formations like ancient warships. Commander Park managed to extract their destroyer from the wreckage of the swarm ship, half her hull missing, but her weapons still firing. This is Hammer 2. We're leaking air and trailing debris, but we're still in the fight. Dr. Rebecca Collins watched the battle from the command ship, taking notes on swarm behavior. Fascinating. Their adaptation cycle is struggling with our multi-vector attack. They can't decide whether to defend against ramming attacks, explosive weapons, or boarding parties. The entire engagement lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 12 swarm bioships had been reduced to floating scrap metal. The humans had lost 2 destroyers and taken 30% casualties. They were celebrating. Outstanding work, people. Admiral Parker's voice came through on all frequencies. Drinks are on me when we get back to base. Collins, I want a full analysis of their adaptation patterns. We're going to hit them again tomorrow. Felvar stared at the tactical display in shock. The humans had just done something that every military academy in the galaxy taught was impossible. They fought the swarm in direct combat and won, and they were planning to do it again. General David Harris stood in the command center of a captured swarm hive ship, watching his engineers tear apart alien technology like kids unwrapping birthday presents. The bioship's organic corridors still pulsed with faint life, but human technicians had already figured out how to keep the lights on and the air breathable. "Ma'am," Private Jake Thompson called to Colonel Jennifer Adams, pointing at a twitching mass of crystalline flesh in the corner. "This one's still moving." "Tag it and bag it," Adams replied without looking up from her tactical display. "Intelligence wants everything alive we can get our hands on. Dead ones too, for that matter." Dr. Rachel Green was having the time of her life in what used to be the swarm ship's nerve center. Banks of organic computers lined the walls, their surfaces covered in patterns that hurt to look at directly. She'd been working for 18 hours straight and showed no signs of slowing down. "This is incredible," she muttered, carefully inserting human-made probes into alien neural networks. Their entire communication system is biological. It's like a living internet that spans across star systems. "Can we hack it?" asked Lieutenant Chris Bell, who'd been a computer programmer before joining the military. "Hack it? We can do better than that," Green grinned, pointing to readings on her scanner. "We can reprogram it. Turn their own network against them." 3 decks down, Major Kevin Ross was setting up what he cheerfully called his psychological warfare station. It looked like a cross between a radio transmitter and a torture device, which wasn't far from the truth. "The beautiful thing about hive minds," he explained to Captain Amanda Foster, "is that they share everything. Emotions, memories, pain. Hit one part of the network with the right signal, and you can mess up the whole system." "What kind of signal?" Foster asked, watching Ross calibrate equipment that definitely wasn't standard military issue. "Oh, just some recording from Earth. Horror movie soundtracks, nails on chalkboards, that song from the ice cream truck that plays at 3 a.m. Turns out alien hive minds don't handle psychological torture any better than individuals do." The results were immediate and terrifying. Swarm fleets that had been moving in perfect coordination suddenly began firing on each other. Bioships started flying in circles, their pilot apparently confused about which way was up. Some just stopped moving entirely, floating dead in space like biological asteroids. "Sir," Lieutenant Bell reported from his monitoring station, "we're picking up massive disruption in swarm communication networks across 17 star systems. Whatever Dr. Green did, it's spreading through their entire collective consciousness." Admiral Parker's voice crackled through the comm from his flagship. "Outstanding work, people. Phase 2 is a go. Harris, how's the tech acquisition going?" General Harris picked up a swarm bioweapon that his engineers had modified with human electronics. It looked like someone had crossed a living snake with a rocket launcher. "We've reverse engineered about 60% of their arsenal. My boys are already improving on the designs." That was the thing about humans that no other species quite understood. They didn't just fight their enemies. They stole everything useful and made it better. Within days of capturing swarm technology, human engineers were producing improved versions. "The bio-armor is particularly interesting," reported Dr. Green. "It's designed to adapt to energy weapons, but it has no defense against good old-fashioned kinetic force. A regular bullet punches right through." "What about their weapons?" asked Colonel Adams, examining a crystalline device that pulsed with internal light. "Scary looking, but inefficient," replied Chief Engineer Tom Wilson. "They rely on biological acids and energy discharge. Our Kevlar stops most of it, and our shields handle the rest. It's like they never learned to build a proper gun." The human reinforcement fleet arrived 2 weeks later, and the Zilani got their first look at what Earth called a proper military response. Dreadnoughts the size of small cities emerged from hyperspace, their hulls bristling with weapons that ranged from antimatter cannons to simple machine guns. The ship names alone were enough to make peaceful species nervous. Vendetta, Retribution, Righteous Fury, and Speak Softly, the last one carrying enough firepower to crack a moon. Commander Alex Turner led the first fighter squadron off the carrier Unstoppable Force. His pilots treated space combat like an extreme sport, pulling maneuvers that would liquefy most alien pilots. "This is Wild Card Squadron," Turner announced over the comm as his fighters screamed toward a swarm formation. "Time to show these bugs how we party on Earth." The swarm's response was everything the humans had hoped for. The hive mind, already disrupted by psychological warfare and confused by human tactics, began making mistakes. Ships flew into asteroids. Entire fleets retreated from battles they were winning. Some bioships simply shut down, their crews apparently too terrified to fight. For the first time in its million-year expansion across the galaxy, the swarm experienced something completely foreign to its collective consciousness: fear. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Bell, monitoring swarm communications, "we're picking up what can only be described as panic across their entire network. Multiple fleets are requesting retreat authorization." General Harris smiled grimly as he watched another swarm stronghold fall to human forces. "Good. Let them run. But make sure they spread the word. Earth's children are in the neighborhood now, and we don't like bullies." The galaxy was about to learn that humans didn't just fight wars. They won them. 6 months after the humans first arrived, Commander Thelvar stood on the balcony of the Confederation's Capitol building, watching the victory parade below. The streets were filled with celebrating Zilani, their scales shimmering in patterns of joy and relief. But what caught his attention were the human soldiers marching alongside them, grinning and waving like they'd just won a friendly sports competition instead of the bloodiest war in galactic history. "Hard to believe it's over," said his aide, joining him at the railing. "Is it over?" Thelvar asked, watching Admiral Jack Parker shake hands with the Confederation Prime Minister. The human looked relaxed, but Thelvar had learned to read the subtle signs. Parker's eyes constantly scanned the crowd, and his free hand stayed near his sidearm. Even at a peace celebration, humans remained ready for war. The ceremony was everything the Confederation could have hoped for. The last swarm fleet had been spotted fleeing toward the galactic rim 3 weeks ago, their survivors running as fast as their bioships could carry them. The threat that had consumed 47 star systems was finally gone. "Commander Thelvar," Admiral Parker said, approaching with that easy smile that never quite reached his eyes. "Beautiful ceremony. Your people throw a good party." We owe you everything, Admiral. Without humanity's help, our civilization would have been consumed months ago. Just doing our job, Parker replied, but he was already looking past the celebration toward the horizon. Speaking of which, we need to talk about ongoing security arrangements. That phrase made Thelvar's scales shift to a nervous blue pattern. Ongoing security? Well, sure, the swarm might regroup and come back. And there are other threats out there. Pirates, aggressive empires, species that might see the Confederation's recent troubles as an opportunity. Parker's tone was casual, but his words carried weight. Can't just pack up and leave our new friends defenseless. Colonel Tom Martinez joined them, carrying a data pad that contained what looked like construction blueprints. We've identified 17 strategic locations for permanent bases throughout Confederation space. Nothing too intrusive, just enough to ensure rapid response times if trouble shows up. 17 bases. Thelvar tried to process what that meant. The humans weren't leaving. They were moving in. Of course, we'll need mining rights for raw materials, continued Dr. Rebecca Collins, appear with her usual stack of scientific reports, and access to your educational institutions. Human children will need schools if their families are stationed here long-term. Families? Thelvar's voice rose slightly. Oh, yes, Lieutenant Amychin said cheerfully, pointing to a transport ship landing at the spaceport. First wave of civilian colonists arrived yesterday. Engineers, teachers, farmers, shop owners. The usual pioneer types who follow the military wherever it goes. Thelvar watched the transport disgorge dozens of humans, carrying everything from construction equipment to what appear to be seeds for earth plants. They moved with the same confident energy as the soldiers, like they owned whatever ground they walked on. Don't worry, Admiral Parker said, noting Thelvar's expression. We're good neighbors. Ask around the galaxy. Nobody bothers human allies. It's become something of an unwritten rule. The truth of that statement was already becoming apparent. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy as news of humanity's victory spread. The Krex Empire, which had been preparing to invade Confederation border worlds, suddenly announced they were focusing on internal development. The Vorthan hegemony, known for demanding tribute from weaker species, sent diplomatic gifts instead of threats. Most telling was what happened to the Black Star pirates. The notorious raider fleet had been terrorizing shipping lanes for decades, but they'd made the mistake of attacking a human convoy 2 days after the swarm defeat. The entire pirate organization simply disappeared overnight. No battles, no negotiations. They were just gone. Word travels fast in this galaxy, explained Captain Robert Hayes, now promoted to Admiral and given command of the new Terran Defense Fleet. Most troublemakers are smart enough to find easier targets. The few who weren't smart enough learned quickly. Commander Lisa Park led patrols that cheerfully introduced themselves to any species that looked aggressive. Her ships had names like Peace Through Strength and Friendly Reminder, and their crews treated potential conflicts like interesting puzzles to solve. The thing is, Lieutenant Danny Walsh explained to a group of Zilani diplomats, humans don't really do the whole neutral observer thing. We see a bully picking on someone smaller, we tend to take it personally. This philosophy was already reshaping galactic politics. 3 different species had requested human protection after seeing what happened to the swarm. 2 others had joined mutual defense pacts with the Confederation, knowing that attacking Zilani worlds now meant fighting Earth's children. Ambassador Linda Peterson was busy establishing the new Terran Embassy, a building that looked suspiciously like a military fortress with diplomatic flags. We prefer to think of it as extended neighborhood watch, she told curious Zilani officials. The galaxy was learning to live with a new reality. Humanity had arrived among the stars not as conquerors, but as something perhaps more unsettling, permanent neighbors who took their friendships very seriously. As Thelvar watched human children playing with young Zilani in the embassy gardens, he realized the Confederation had gotten exactly what they'd asked for. They'd begged the stars for aid against monsters, and the stars had sent them monsters of their own. The difference was these monsters hunted other monsters for sport. The age of easy conquest was over. The Deathworlders had made themselves comfortable, and they weren't going anywhere.